Bienvenidos to this week's Tarot Talk. We are in the midst of the eclipse season, with the first eclipse taking place last week in Aquario, and now we are in this liminal sort of in-between as we wait for the following eclipse to happen next week. This is a continued moment of what feels like being suspended in a bit of chaos, a bit of a whirlwind, very electric, very chaotic, and circus-like. As I mentioned, with that Leo lunation that happened at the beginning of the month, we are absolutely in the realm of the circus, and how we are navigating this moment in time is likely to the best of our abilities because it is something. But this week starts off in a very lovely influence, namely because on Sunday the 22nd, Venus in Pisces makes a trine to Jupiter in Cancer. Venus and Jupiter are the two benefics of the sky, the two planets that bring about the most positive energy. Venus and Jupiter are both exalted in Pisces and Cancer, meaning that they rejoice here, they adore being here, they function at their best here. And a trine is one of the most positive aspects that you can have within the planets. Saturn is no longer in Pisces, meaning that the Pisces house is fully under Venus's domain. She has full ability to relax and do her Venus stuff comfortably without a rigid eye kind of watching her every move. And with Jupiter in Cancer promoting abundance and a intense feeling of support and healing and nurturance, when these two planets come together in a trine, love is in the air, healing is in the air. There are a variety of opportunities to connect to our emotions with ourselves and with others, to support each other and to really provide safe spaces and safe containers. This is happening at 15 degrees of Pisces. So if you have prominent placements of any of the water signs, Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, then this aspect will be making a trine to your personal planets as well. But ultimately, this is a day to really enjoy this energy, take a little bit of a breather, connect with friends, connect with family. If you have a Pisces 4th house, you might go into a little bit of a deep clean or have a really beautiful day at home where you renovate something or maybe invite friends over for a really lovely dinner. If you have Pisces in the 1st house, this might be a day where you are just feeling so much more generous and abundant and capable of really holding space for yourself and for others. And so whatever way that this might fall, please enjoy this influence. It's a godsend with where we find ourselves at this time. And I will take any little bit of good that can come in an eclipse window. We are still in the eclipse energies, right? So a lot of stuff might still feel incredibly shaky or unstable and unreliable even. So with an influence like this, we have a moment to just bask in the waters of something lovely coming into our life. Then on Thursday the 26th, Mercury stations retrograde in Pisces at 22 degrees. Now, Mercury entered shadow in Pisces on Wednesday the 11th at 8 degrees. And so we are going to be traveling back to that point. Think back to any conversations or anything notable that might have taken place around the 11th of February, because this is going to be absolutely revisited. And Mercury is going to take its sweet time in this retrograde. It's not going to exit Pisces until April of 2026. So we are going to absolutely trudge along through these Piscean waters, and analytical and logistical Mercury is going to try its best to course correct or to revise anything in our communications, in our dreams, in our contracts, in our pursuit of connectedness and compassion for others in a way that really puts it all together. And Mercury here struggles a lot. And also, it gives us the opportunity to really think outside the box. I mean, just because it's a retrograde doesn't mean that it inherently has to be negative for everybody, especially if you're born with a retrograde planet. Sometimes people who have Mercury retrograde in their natal charts actually experience retrogrades as a positive thing. So just because it's in its fall, just because it's in retrograde, does not immediately mean catastrophe. It could, however, mean that plans and more of those logistical processes get thrown for a loop and bubbles might pop. in this moment. If you had a certain idea of how something would go, this retrograde is going to say, this doesn't make any sense. We need to redo the whole thing. We need to rehave that conversation or that meeting or restart the foundation of this project entirely so that when we move forward again, it makes sense with the creative vision that we had initially, with the dream, with the intention, or with the emotional alignment that was maybe still downloading when this idea was conceived, but now we have so much more of it. If you've got Pisces rising, then you might feel a little bit cloudy or scattered throughout this retrograde. If you've got any prominent mutable placements, then you might also feel this a little bit intensely as it'll be making a square to Sagittarius, Gemini, and Virgo. But ultimately, this can be a time where we are being really invited to slow down and to really feel our emotions and to really process the information that's coming through in a deeper way and to really take our time with it, because we are being inundated, and that's a very watery kind of word, with information coming at us from all directions, and we are likely absorbing only what we have the capacity to take in and just leaving the rest to fall into the depths of the ocean. Mercury here is saying, slow down. We might need some of that. We might want to recover some of that information. So be very intentional about what you're consuming and the waters that you are choosing to swim in, because there are pieces of information that are relevant to our journey and to our life and to the role that we're playing on the earth at this time. And then there's information that is meant to distract us or weigh us down. Again, Saturn is no longer in Pisces, so we get a lot of levity restored here with Jupiter making a trine to this Pisces house. So there is an opportunity for us to sit with communications coming our way and not feel overwhelmed by them or not feel like we're sinking. On Friday the 27th, then the Sun in Mercury will conjoin the North Node. So we are receiving faded insights and illuminations about our Pisces house. And Pisces is very in the ethers, very much in the feeling realm of it all. And with the North Node representing a hunger for whatever house it's in, we might just feel an extra level of yearning for our own internal compass to show us the way, for our own intuition to just take the steering wheel for a bit, as opposed to what others tell us, what they think that we should do. We might just be feeling something that maybe doesn't make sense to other people. But for us, it's like, I don't know why I feel like I have to take this exit, even though I never take this exit, but I'm going to do it. That's a very simple example. This can be a very intuitive moment, and intuition is one of our most skilled tools to practice in times of chaos and havoc and destabilization, and really lean into that, especially because then Mars in Aquarium is going to make a square to Uranus in Tauro. This is happening at 27 degrees. Sudden violence, sudden accidents, sudden chaos are abound. There are continued shakeups in how the people and social groups relate to one another and to whatever establishments are in place, with the continued protests against ICE, against violent governmental systems and structures. This feels related on a personal level. You might just find that you are wanting to take action on information that you've received in a way that might be very destabilizing to the foundations that you have in your life at this time. Depending on how it falls in your chart, just expect that there's going to be an element of disruption and shakiness in the air, and you may not feel this a lot, or you might feel it very sharply. Whatever the case, because this influence is typically a significator for sudden accidents, just be really careful about how you're moving, but it could be purely intellectual or financial or relational. So just move with caution. We are still in eclipse season after all. Last but certainly not least, Venus in Pisces is going to make a conjunction to recently stationed retrograde Mercury. This is also happening at 22 degrees. Because this is happening right as it's stationed retrograde, there might be someone in your life who represents really high feminine energy, a prominent woman that is weaved into the story, or maybe even handing you a chalice of water and saying, are you ready to go back and review? Do you need some water before you do this? How can I help you here? Conversations with women might spark a bit of hope as you realize that something has to be revised. Venus can really share in this position. She can be really supportive. And again, this is all in a trine to Jupiter. Themes of love and fantasy can really come into play as well. So if you are meeting someone new, or if you're in a talking stage or anything like that, be mindful of limerence. We don't ever want to fall into limerence. Be mindful of not constructing a fantasy about somebody, because with Venus in Pisces, she can get really ahead of herself, and Mercury has the capacity to really distort the way that we think about things in a situation where maybe it's getting ahead of itself. So this could be a moment that maybe signals that you are on a relational level about to revise what is rooted in fantasy, what is rooted in compassion, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. Just because a relationship is rooted in fantasy and compassion doesn't inherently make it negative if you still have your feet on the earth. So this can be a moment to also ask yourself, how grounded am I in my ideals or in my relationship or conversations with this person or this group of people? Women's voices are absolutely going to be amplified at this time in a way that feels, again, very hopeful, very inspiring, and very supportive. And we can view this retrograde as something that is ultimately going to help us in the long term. I don't like to view retrogrades as negative. In the case that they feel negative, it might be because they disorient us or they throw plans that we thought were perfect for a loop. But after the retrograde, we realized that was never going to work. And thank God I had to revise that thing or that conversation or that situation. There's an element of hope here that is broadcasted in our ways of thinking and our conversations, and it feels really abundant as well. And that's the week. We are in this moment that feels like anything can happen. And I encourage you to connect with the lovely influences of this week and to really take a moment to stop and smell the roses and to share some of the beauty that you are experiencing with others, whether that's on an online platform or in conversation with a stranger. You never know how it's going to impact somebody else's life. We're now going to take a second to pull a card for the week and see what it is that we most need to know to support us. We have the Page of Wands, and the Page of Wands is a seeker of knowledge, a seeker of wisdom, even if it comes at the expense of a journey that is out of one's comfort zone. This is a fiery card, as wands represent fire, and a page is absolutely somebody who is involved in the gathering of information and the sharing of information, of observing and collecting and assimilating experiences, not just for the self, but for others to read about or to converse about. We have 3 pyramids in the background, which of course represents hidden information, hidden knowledge, wisdom, and the occult. And the fire here can be an element of how our soul is propelling us forward into something unknown and new, but maybe it's what we need to gain greater wisdom or to learn something about ourselves that we haven't previously thought of. This week is very watery, and it's got a little bit of air and a little bit of earth, but there's not really any fire. The fire that we have in the sky right now is all Saturn and Neptune. And that really puts things into perspective here, that 2 planets that essentially contradict each other's values are in this fiery house, causing likely a lot of heatedness, a lot of passion, but maybe also a bit of confusion as we attempt to figure out what's real, what isn't real, what boundaries are needed as they're dissolving but also coming about. This Page of Wands is not saying we need to have the answer to everything now. It's saying observe what is happening and gather the information that feels concrete and solid and start building a foundation of what is true. versus what is maybe still shifty and there's no definitive answer, but you continue to observe it. This is a card of patience, and fieriness is not typically associated with patience, but to build a fire, you have to have that patience, right? You have to gather the wood, or you have to create the spark to start the fire, and then it'll warm you. But it doesn't happen immediately. It takes time. So how are you building a fire to give you that constant warmth as we navigate a time that is presenting to us a variety of energies and variety of information? And if it feels like systems or structures are on fire all around us right now, what is it that is teaching us on a personal level, but also on a collective level, about how we show up in the world in those moments, about how community organizes in those moments, and what fires are being lit within us for us to show up in a new way? So Page of Wands is really interesting. I think it gives a very necessary spark to this reading, and I hope that that made sense. I hope that that was helpful. If you would be interested in doing a one-to-one consultation with me, please feel free to check out audisolares.net, and I would love to talk stars with you. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm sending you mucha magia, mucho amor, y mucha buena suerte for the rest of this eclipse season. We are right smack in the center of it. So I hope that you have a support system around you. I hope that you have all of the tools that you need. And if you don't, that these tarot talks can inspire you on where to begin or what that might look like. And if you need any kind of extra support that you feel like I can shed a light on, please feel free to comment below, and I would be happy to expand on whatever questions you might have. I will see you next week to talk about the following lunar eclipse in Virgo. And thank you again for spending time with me today. Cuídense.